next session on operations research. In this session, we will discuss the various rules for game theory. Game theory provides a set of rules and principles to model strategic interactions between rational players. These rules guide how players behave in a variety of situations, often involving competition, cooperation, or conflict. Here are the key rules or principles that form the foundation of game theory. The first one is rationality of players. Rule: players are assumed to be rational, meaning they will always choose strategies that maximize their individual payoffs or utility. Each player seeks the best possible outcome for themselves based on their understanding of the game. So this is the rationality which is used by all the players such that they are in a win-win situation. Common knowledge of rationality. Rule: all players are aware that the other players are also rational and they know that everyone knows this, creating a common understanding of the situation. So if a particular player A is going to play a strategy 1 such that he is going to be in a winning situation, B will know that A is definitely playing rationally and he is going to choose option 1. Also, A knows that B will choose, say, option 2 such that B is in a better situation. So they know that they are playing rationally and they are going to choose what is best for themselves. This assumption ensures that strategies can be predicted and analyzed based on mutual knowledge of rationality. Third one is strategic independence. Rule: the outcome for each player depends not only on their own strategy but also on the strategies chosen by other players. So like I told you, when A is choosing, say, strategy 1 and B is choosing strategy 2, it is possible that A wins the final game and B loses the game. So they know that once A will play strategy 1, B is definitely going to be out of the market. So that is something they are aware of, and they know that their strategy is not only one affecting them, it is also the other strategy which has affected their game. A player must account for the possible choices of others when selecting their own strategy, since their payoff is influenced by the combination of everyone's actions. The fourth one is perfect information in some games. Rule: in some games like chess, players have perfect information, meaning they know all the moves made previously and the current state of the game. In games with perfect information, players make decisions with full knowledge of the consequences of all actions up to that point. So basically in chess, when two players are playing, say, A and B, they have definitely played the game a lot many times. They know what will happen or what will be the consequence of whatever moves they are making. So it is not that they know what is going to happen next. They may also know the next 4-5 moves that are going to be played because they have played so many times. So that's called as perfect information in a game. The next one is imperfect information. In many games, such as poker, players do not have perfect information and are unsure of certain elements such as the strategies or payoffs of other players. So like in chess, they know what is going to happen. In poker, really no one knows. It is a complete unexpected thing that turns up. In these cases, players must make decisions based on beliefs or probabilities about what others might do. So this is something like you are just trying to understand what the other player is going to do, and accordingly you can just make your moves and wait for the result. Here what happens is the strategies of other player will be affecting your game, and it is not only about your game alone or the only strategies that you have made. The next one is simultaneous versus sequential play. Simultaneous games. Players make decisions at the same time without knowing the choices of others. In these games, strategies must be chosen based on expectations about other strategies. Example in a payoff matrix. So when you're playing simultaneously, like rock, paper, scissors is one example. So everything happens simultaneously. You do not know what the other player will do and you have to just make a rough estimate or a probability, something which comes to your mind and you make a move and the other player also creates a move, and then whatever happens you will have to bear with the consequences. Sequential games, players make decisions one after another with later players having some knowledge of earlier players' moves. In these games, backward induction is often induced to reason through the game's outcomes starting from the last move. For example is chess. Chess is something which you play sequentially, move after move. So once you go backward, you can also think of what the player has done and what he may do. So you can have an anticipation of the further game. Next one is payoff structure. Rule: each player has a specific payoff that results from each combination of strategies chosen by all players. These payoffs represent the preferences or utilities of the players and drive their strategic decisions. Players aim to maximize their payoffs. So payoff structure is that results from a combination of strategies that you have chosen to play. Sometimes you may have just thought of a probability of the other player's game, or sometimes you just try to trace back what the person has already played and what he may do next. So that's a combination of strategies which leads to a payoff wherein you try to get the maximum profit and always try to minimize your losses. Next is Nash equilibrium. A Nash equilibrium is reached when no player can improve their payoff by unilaterally changing their strategy, assuming other players' strategies remain unchanged. So when your strategies are not really going to help you, you just have to continue with your game, and it may also not affect the other player. This is a core solution concept in game theory and represents a stable outcome where all player strategies are mutually best responses. So in chess also you can reach a case of Nash equilibrium where you have played your best, the other player is also going to play his best. There is no other move that you can play which will now give you something which is better. So that is an equilibrium state. But yes, definitely one player is going to win and the other is going to lose. Next is dominant strategy rule. If a player has a dominant strategy, one that always yields a better outcome than any other strategy, regardless of what others do, they should always play that strategy. So if you have a strategy, you know, for example, in X0, there is a dominant strategy where people try to take up these ends. Like suppose I've taken an X here, somebody would play a 0 say over here. What you do is you quickly put an X over here. Now the person who is playing 0 may not know where to put a 0 and say he just puts a random 0 here thinking that he will put a 0 here next and he's going to win the game. And now you play your dominant strategy, that is you put an X over here, and now the person who has played 0 is completely in a trance state, because if he puts a 0 here, you put an X and you win, or if he puts a 0 here, you put an X and you win. So this kind of a strategy of playing X's or 0, now whatever you choose, whether you choose an X or a 0, but if you play this strategy of choosing the corners, you will always win the game come what may. But if you are playing with the same player more than once and he realizes the strategy, then this dominant strategy is also not going to work. So rational player will choose the dominant strategy if one exists because it guarantees the best possible outcome in any scenario. The next is Pareto and efficiency. An outcome is Pareto efficient if no player can be made better off without making at least one other player worse off. So if you cannot make yourself better by making somebody else worse, then that is called as the Pareto efficiency. This principle is used to evaluate whether an allocation of resources or strategy profile is efficient, although it does not guarantee fairness. So basically you need to have some kind of winning strategy where you are going to make the other person lose and you're going to win. That is your Pareto efficiency. Now this can happen in any type of game where you resort to some kind of means of winning. The next is backward induction. In sequential games, players can reason backward from the final move to determine the optimal strategy at earlier stages. This is used to find sub-game perfect equilibrium in extensive form games, ensuring rational behavior at each step. The common example over here is chess, where at the initial stages, if you start understanding the moves or you may have played that game before, with those moves, you can figure out what is going to happen in future and you can play. Or you can also have that Excel 0 game as I showed you. If you know what is going to happen in future, you can just go backwards and play the game such that you are going to always win the game. The next is mixed strategy rule. In cases where a pure strategy, a single definitive choice, does not guarantee a favorable outcome, a player may use a mixed strategy by randomizing their choices according to certain probabilities. Players choose a mixed strategy to make themselves unpredictable and to potentially maximize their expected payoff. I have given you this example before. Say two players A and B are playing rock, paper, scissors. So in that case, if A is choosing a pure strategy of only playing rock, what B can do is he can play amongst all the three options. But once he realizes that A is only playing a pure strategy of rock, to win, B will always choose paper so that he is always going to get a winning score. If B chooses rock, so there will be a no win situation. And if B chooses Caesar, he is going to definitely lose the game. So if B comes to know of A's strategy, B will choose definitely paper. But otherwise, if A is also playing any one of the three, then B is also playing any one of the three. That becomes a mixed strategy by both the players. The next one is zero-sum game. In zero-sum games, one player's gain is exactly balanced by another player's loss. The total payoff in the game is fixed, so any benefit to one player directly translates to a loss for the other, creating a competitive situation. So if there are two players in the market who are selling cold drinks, say A and B, say because of the taste, because of the bottle size, quantity, A becomes very famous in the market. What happens to B is a complete loss and hence A starts selling in the market. Now this could be a particular product, like for example a mango drink. So A and B both have produced mango drink. If A becomes famous, what happens to B is a loss, that is called as a zero-sum game. The next one is cooperative versus non-cooperative play. Cooperative games, players can form coalitions or make binding agreements to improve their outcomes. The focus is on how players can benefit from cooperation and how they can fairly distribute the collective payoff. So if two companies come together, they merge and they provide mobile network to a particular area, then we will say it is a cooperative type of play by the two companies. Non-cooperative games, players act independently without forming binding agreements. The emphasis is on individual strategies and incentives, with players trying to maximize their own payoffs without direct collaboration. Again, the same example, there are two companies who are providing mobile network to an area. If they decide to strategically play independently, now what they do is they are going to make some offers for the customers such that the customers tend to switch to their network and they would benefit out of it. So this is a case of non-cooperative game. The next is Bayesian games and incomplete information. When players have incomplete information about other players' strategies or payoffs, they form beliefs, often modeled as probability distributions, and update them based on new information. This type of game uses Bayesian reasoning to make decisions under uncertainty. Example of Bayesian games is auction. There will be a particular amount, say fixed for a particular house that you are putting up for auction. You may not be aware of what two players are going to play, but what happens is A starts bidding for the house, then B goes on bidding higher, and then they continue till they are over and above their budget that they have set for the house. So example of auction is Bayesian game. Evolutionary stable strategy. In evolutionary game theory, a strategy is considered stable if, when a majority of population adopts it, no alternative strategy can invade and overtake the population. The example of evolutionary stable strategy is hawk versus dove game. Everyone is aware of the behavior of hawks and doves. If you know, hawks are very aggressive in nature. Doves are very docile What hawks do is they never cooperate. They always attack each other and they are hurt by hawks only. Until the time they do not suffer an injury, they are not going to move out of the game. But what happens with doves are they are very docile, they are very cooperative. They can get the work done from the other doves by cooperating. So this is a certain behavior of people also, like hawks and dove. So this concept explains the persistence of certain behaviors in populations over time. How certain people get the work done by their aggressive behaviors or how people cooperate and get their work done. So that is the game theory of hawks versus doves. The last one is repeated games. In games that are played repeatedly, players may adopt different strategies than they would in a one-shot game, often cooperating in the long run to maximize payoffs. In repeated interactions, players may use strategies like tit for tat, where they mirror the other player's previous actions to encourage cooperation. So, this is something which happens in a day to day life also. Example of repeated games is prisoner's dilemma, where two prisoners are questioned, and if they decide to cooperate and not tell the truth, they will be in a win-win situation. If one decides to tell the truth, so he gets lesser punishment and the other is going to get more punishment for lying. Or if both of them have decided to not cooperate and tell the truth, then they will get away with some minimum punishment. These rules form the foundation for analyzing various strategic situations in game theory, from economic behavior to evolutionary biology and beyond. They help to predict how rational players will act in different competitive and cooperative environments. So, with this, I end the session. I hope you have understood the rules for game theory. If you have any doubts, please write to me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for latest video updates. See you in the next session. Thank you.